The ocean is vast, mysterious, and unforgiving. Beneath its calm surface lies a world we barely understand, a world that sometimes claims lives, leaving behind questions that may never be answered. This is a story that begins deep in the waters of Southeast Asia, where 53 souls aboard the Indonesian submarine KRI Nanggala 402 embarked on what should have been a routine military exercise in April 2021. But what happened next sent shockwaves across the globe and left experts, families, and even skeptics grappling with a terrifying truth. Picture this: a seasoned crew, a sturdy submarine with decades of reliable service, and an operation planned down to the last detail. For the families of those aboard, it was just another day. Some kissed their loved ones goodbye, expecting their return in a few days. Others carried the quiet pride of knowing their fathers, brothers, or sons were protecting their country. No one could have imagined the tragedy that was about to unfold. On the night of April 20, 2021, the KRI Nanggala 402 was preparing for a torpedo drill in the dark depths of the Bali Sea. Communication with the submarine was steady, the crew had reported no issues, and everything appeared routine. Then, just before dawn, silence. The submarine failed to make its scheduled report. Calls went unanswered, and by sunrise, it was clear something had gone horribly wrong. The Indonesian Navy launched a frantic search. Within hours, an international rescue operation was underway, with countries like the United States, Australia, and Singapore joining forces. The urgency was palpable. Submarines like the Nanggala have a critical oxygen supply, and if the crew were trapped underwater, they had only days to survive. Hope flickered as sonar detected an unknown object in the search area, but the clock was ticking. As the hours turned into days, fragments of evidence began to surface, literally. Oil slicks spotted near the submarine's last known location raised fears of a catastrophic failure. The Navy later confirmed the unthinkable. The KRI Nanggala 402 had been found at a depth of over 800 meters, far below its maximum diving capability. It had split into 3 parts. There were no survivors. But here's where the story takes a chilling turn. Questions began to emerge. What caused a submarine, inspected and cleared for duty, to descend to its doom? Could it have been a technical failure? Human error? Or was there something lurking beneath the surface that no one could explain? The official reports pointed to factors like aging equipment and extreme water pressure, but whispers of other possibilities refused to die down. Some claimed there were warnings before the tragedy, unusual readings, strange disturbances, and even sightings of unidentified objects in the area. Others pointed to the region's history, rich in myths of cursed waters and vengeful spirits. And then there's the unsettling fact that the Bali Sea lies within the Pacific Ring of Fire, one of the most seismically active regions on Earth. Could a natural phenomenon, perhaps an undersea earthquake, have triggered the disaster? As you dive deeper into the story, one thing becomes clear. The truth about the KRI Nanggala 402 is more than just a tale of a lost submarine. It's a window into the unknown, a reminder of how little we truly understand about the ocean's depths. The terrifying part isn't just the loss of life, it's the lingering mystery that surrounds it. But the most haunting question remains: could it happen again? Stay with us as we explore the theories, the evidence, and the chilling possibilities that might make you think twice the next time you look out at the sea. The KRI Nanggala 402 was no ordinary vessel. It was a submarine with a storied history, originally built in Germany in the late 1970s and later acquired by Indonesia to bolster its naval defense. Despite its age, the Nanggala was considered a reliable workhorse of the fleet. It had undergone periodic upgrades, including one in South Korea in 2012, to modernize its systems and ensure its readiness for active duty. 4 years, it operated without major incident, a silent guardian patrolling the waters of Indonesia's vast archipelago. The men aboard the Nanggala were seasoned professionals, handpicked for their expertise and composure under pressure. Among them were commanders with decades of experience and young recruits eager to prove themselves. Each crew member had undergone rigorous training to navigate the challenges of underwater operations, from tight quarters and technical malfunctions to the immense psychological toll of being submerged for extended periods. This was their life, a blend of precision, discipline, and trust in one another. But as the days passed after the Nanggala's disappearance, those who knew the crew began to share stories. Families spoke of phone calls made in haste, messages left unread, and strange feelings of unease before the submarine departed. One officer's wife recounted how her husband had been unusually quiet the night before, staring out the window as if lost in thought. Another crewman's brother shared that he'd had an unsettling dream about water, vast and endless, swallowing everything in its path. While these accounts might seem coincidental, they added an eerie layer to an already puzzling tragedy. The region where the Nangala vanished, the Bali Sea, has long been a source of fascination and fear. This area, surrounded by the islands of Bali, Java, and Lombok, is known for its breathtaking beauty and treacherous depths. Beneath the shimmering surface lies a network of underwater canyons, volcanic ridges, and unpredictable currents. For centuries, sailors have whispered tales of ships disappearing without a trace, pulled into the abyss by forces beyond comprehension. Even in modern times, the Bali Sea is regarded as one of the more challenging areas for navigation, with sudden shifts in weather and strong undercurrents that can catch even the most experienced mariners off guard. In the days following the loss of the Nangala, the Indonesian Navy faced mounting pressure to uncover what went wrong. With the help of advanced technology and international cooperation, they pieced together fragments of the puzzle. The submarine had been conducting a live torpedo drill, a standard exercise designed to test the crew's readiness and the vessel's capabilities. It was during the final preparation stages that something went catastrophically wrong. While the exact sequence of events remains unclear, it's believed that the submarine experienced a loss of control and descended beyond its maximum safe depth. Experts have pointed out that submarines like the Nangala are designed to withstand immense pressure, but every vessel has its limits. The deeper it goes, the greater the strain on its hull. At extreme depths, even the slightest flaw can lead to a devastating implosion. Was this what happened to the Nangala? The official explanation suggests it's possible. However, some anomalies in the data have left room for speculation. For one, there were reports of an unusual acoustic signature detected in the area shortly before the Nangala disappeared. Described as a non-natural sound, it resembled neither marine life nor typical underwater seismic activity. This has led some to theorize about the involvement of an external force, be it another vessel, a previously undetected underwater phenomenon, or something else entirely. Could the Nangala have collided with a submerged object, or was it caught in a sudden and violent underwater event? Adding to the intrigue is the history of the surrounding waters. The Bali Sea sits on the edge of the Pacific Ring of Fire, a zone of intense geological activity where tectonic plates collide and shift. This region is prone to earthquakes, tsunamis, and underwater volcanic eruptions, any of which could have had catastrophic consequences for the submarine. In fact, just weeks before the Nangala's disappearance, a series of small earthquakes were recorded near the area. While there's no definitive evidence linking these events to the tragedy, the timing has raised questions. Beyond the natural explanations, there's another layer to the story, one rooted in myth and folklore. In Indonesia, the sea has always been regarded as a place of power and mystery. Local legends speak of spirits that dwell beneath the waves, guarding their domain against intruders. Fishermen have long avoided certain areas, claiming they're cursed or haunted. Whether you believe in such tales or not, it's undeniable that the ocean has a way of humbling even the most advanced technology and the bravest of souls. The families of the crew have struggled to reconcile their grief with the unanswered questions surrounding the loss of their loved ones. Some have expressed frustration with the lack of clarity, while others have found solace in faith, believing their relatives are at peace in the afterlife. Tributes have poured in from across the country, honoring the courage and sacrifice of the men aboard the Nangala. But for those closest to them, the pain remains raw, amplified by the haunting mystery of their final moments. The search for the Nangala and its crew wasn't just a race against time, it was a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. Nations put aside their differences to offer assistance, deploying advanced sonar equipment, unmanned underwater vehicles, and expert divers. The operation uncovered crucial evidence, including debris and parts of the submarine's hull, but it also revealed the limits of human capability. At such extreme depths, even the most sophisticated technology struggled to provide answers. As more details emerged, the story of the Nangala began to take on a life of its own. Speculation ranged from plausible to far-fetched, fueled by a mix of scientific curiosity and human imagination. Some claimed the submarine might have been the victim of sabotage or espionage, while others suggested it had encountered a previously unknown natural phenomenon. A few even ventured into the realm of the fantastical, invoking theories of underwater creatures or anomalies that defy explanation. What's certain is that the loss of the Nangala has left an indelible mark on all who've been touched by its story. It's a sobering reminder of the risks faced by those who venture into the unknown, whether in the depths of the ocean or beyond. The crew of the Nangala were trained for every scenario they could imagine, yet they were ultimately at the mercy of forces beyond their control. Their story is a testament to the bravery of those who dedicate their lives to serving others, even in the face of unimaginable danger. But as compelling as the facts may be, they leave us with more questions than answers. What truly happened in the final moments of the KRI Nangala 402? Was it simply a tragic accident, or is there a deeper truth waiting to be uncovered? The search for answers continues, and with it, the story of the Nangala becomes a reflection of our enduring fascination with the mysteries of the sea. For now, the truth remains elusive. But one thing is clear: the ocean still holds secrets that may never fully surface. And as we look to the horizon, we're reminded of how much we have yet to learn, and how much we stand to lose when we confront the unknown. The deeper you look into the story of the KRI Nangala 402, the more questions seem to bubble to the surface. It wasn't just a submarine and its crew that were lost. It was a mystery that pulled people into its depths, a riddle that seemed impossible to solve. For the families of the crew, the pain of losing their loved ones was compounded by the uncertainty surrounding their final moments. How does a state-of-the-art rescue operation end in failure? How does a submarine simply vanish without warning, only to be found shattered, far below its safe diving limit? These questions hung heavy in the air as investigators tried to piece together what little evidence remained. One of the most troubling aspects of the tragedy was the eerie precision with which the timeline unfolded. At 3:46 a.m. on April 21st, the submarine had requested permission to dive. By 4:25 a.m., contact was lost. In less than 40 minutes, the KRI Nangala 402 had gone from a fully functional naval vessel to an untraceable enigma. The suddenness of it all was staggering. Submarines are equipped with fail-safes, emergency protocols, and redundancy systems designed to prevent disasters. Yet, in this case, none of it seemed to matter. Why? One theory suggested a catastrophic failure in the submarine's ballast tanks, which control its buoyancy. If the tanks malfunctioned during the dive, the vessel could have been forced into a rapid, uncontrollable descent. But even this theory raised questions. Why didn't the crew signal distress? Why didn't they deploy emergency beacons, which are standard on submarines? The absence of these actions hinted at something even more sudden, perhaps an implosion caused by pressure or a mechanical failure that left no time to react. While the official investigation focused on technical explanations, others began to explore alternative angles. Among the crew were men who had spent years navigating the seas, veterans who knew the submarine inside and out. They weren't inexperienced or careless. Could it be that they encountered something entirely outside the realm of what they had trained for? Some speculated about a rare underwater phenomenon called a turbidity current, a sudden, powerful flow of sediment and water that can occur near underwater slopes. If the Nangala had unknowingly entered such a current, it might have been dragged to depths far beyond its structural limits. Then there was the matter of the acoustic anomalies. During the early stages of the search, sonar equipment picked up what experts described as non-natural sounds. These weren't typical underwater noises caused by marine life or seismic activity. They were sharp, almost metallic, and completely out of place. While some dismissed these sounds as echoes from the wreckage, others couldn't shake the feeling that they pointed to something more deliberate. Could there have been another vessel in the area? A collision, perhaps, or even an act of sabotage. The Indonesian Navy was quick to deny any such possibilities, but the lack of transparency only fueled speculation. Among the most unsettling aspects of the story were the personal accounts from people who lived near the Bali Sea. Fishermen spoke of strange occurrences in the days leading up to the tragedy: unusual water temperatures, sudden shifts in currents, and sightings of large, unidentifiable objects moving beneath their boats. Some described hearing low, rumbling sounds late at night, vibrations that seemed to come from deep below. These accounts, while anecdotal, added an almost supernatural dimension to the mystery. Were these signs of an impending disaster, ignored until it was too late? At the same time, the tragedy of the Nangala cast a spotlight on the broader challenges facing Indonesia's military. The submarine was nearly 40 years old, part of an aging fleet that struggled to keep pace with modern naval technology. While the vessel had been upgraded in recent years, critics argued that it was still ill-equipped to handle the demands of contemporary warfare. Was the Nangala's fate a consequence of systemic neglect, a warning sign of deeper issues within the Indonesian defense apparatus? Or was it simply a matter of bad luck, an unforeseeable accident that no amount of preparation could have prevented? As these questions swirled, the families of the crew tried to make sense of their loss. Some turned to religion, seeking comfort in the belief that their loved ones had fulfilled their duty and were now at peace. Others demanded answers, refusing to accept the official explanations at face value. Among them was the father of a young officer, who had been one of the Nanggala's most promising recruits. "My son was proud to serve his country," he told reporters, his voice trembling with emotion. "But I need to know why he's not coming home." Meanwhile, the international response to the tragedy highlighted the complexities of maritime cooperation. While countries like the United States, Australia, and Singapore offered cutting-edge technology and expertise, the rescue operation also exposed the limitations of even the most advanced systems. The Bali Sea's rugged underwater terrain made navigation difficult, and the sheer depth of the wreck presented challenges that few teams were prepared to tackle. For all the talk of global unity, there was an underlying tension, an unspoken competition to see who could uncover the truth first. And then there were the whispers of more extraordinary possibilities, fueled by the Internet's endless appetite for the unexplained. Some pointed to the region's proximity to the famous Wallace Line, a biogeographical boundary that separates distinct species in Southeast Asia. Could there be undiscovered marine life in these waters, something powerful enough to pose a threat to a submarine? Others turned their attention to Indonesia's volcanic activity, speculating about underwater eruptions or gas releases that might have destabilized the vessel. These theories, while compelling, remained speculative at best. But they serve to underscore one undeniable fact: the ocean is a realm of infinite mystery, where the line between science and myth often blurs. As the weeks turned into months, the story of the Nanggala began to fade from the headlines, replaced by new crises and controversies. But for those who had followed the case closely, the unanswered questions lingered. The Bali Sea, once a place of beauty and wonder, now seemed ominous, a reminder of how little we truly understand about the forces at work beneath the surface. And for the families of the crew, the pain of their loss was compounded by the knowledge that they might never know the full truth. Yet, even in the face of such uncertainty, the legacy of the KRI Nanggala 402 endures. It's a story of bravery and sacrifice, of human ingenuity tested against the raw power of nature. It's a story that forces us to confront the limits of our knowledge and the fragility of our existence. And above all, it's a story that refuses to be forgotten, its unanswered questions echoing like a distant sonar ping, growing fainter but never fully disappearing. But what if the truth is something we're not ready to face? Could it be that the Nanggala's final moments hold secrets too unsettling to comprehend? The deeper we dive into this mystery, the more we're forced to confront an uncomfortable reality. Some answers may never come to light. The ocean has a way of keeping its secrets, and sometimes, those secrets are better left undisturbed. Stay with us, because this story isn't over. The truth, as terrifying as it may be, is still out there, waiting to be uncovered. The deeper investigators delved into the events surrounding the KRI Nanggala 402, the more the lines between reality and speculation blurred. Despite the extensive recovery efforts, key pieces of the puzzle remained frustratingly out of reach. Debris from the submarine had been retrieved, yet it offered little clarity. A torn section of the hull, mangled pieces of internal equipment, and the shattered remains of the periscope. These fragments told a story of immense pressure and destruction but stopped short of explaining how it had all begun. The lack of a definitive cause left experts grappling with uncomfortable questions, their theories more uncertain with each passing day. Then, a detail emerged that sent ripples of unease through the investigation. Some of the debris retrieved bore scorch marks that didn't align with the submarine's known systems or typical implosion damage. This sparked theories about an external event, something sudden, violent, and perhaps even intentional. Was it possible the submarine had been struck by a rogue torpedo or an uncharted explosive device lurking on the ocean floor? Naval officials denied such claims, insisting there was no evidence of hostile activity. But whispers of a shadowy incident involving foreign powers or classified military operations began to circulate, stirring even more speculation. Compounding the mystery was the testimony of one of the sonar technicians involved in the initial search. In a rare interview, he described an anomaly recorded in the hours after the Nanggala disappeared, an unidentifiable acoustic signature that didn't match the wreckage's known location. It was as if something massive was moving through the depths, something we couldn't trace, he said. His statement, though cryptic, reignited conversations about the region's unique underwater conditions. Was this anomaly connected to the submarine's disappearance, or was it an unrelated occurrence that happened to coincide with the tragedy? The currents of the Bali Sea seemed to carry more than just wreckage. They carried a sense of foreboding that unsettled even the most seasoned sailors. Local fishermen, who had long navigated these waters, began recounting strange occurrences with renewed urgency. They spoke of fish behaving erratically, swarming to the surface as if fleeing something below. Some described seeing bursts of light deep beneath the water at night, flashes that would vanish as quickly as they appeared. Though dismissed by officials as unverified accounts, these stories added to the growing sense of unease surrounding the investigation. Among those following the case, a small group of independent researchers began to question whether natural phenomena could fully explain the tragedy. The Bali Sea, with its network of underwater volcanoes and tectonic activity, had long been a site of fascination for oceanographers. Could the Nangala have been caught in an underwater eruption or methane gas release, events known to create sudden and powerful changes in pressure? Such scenarios, while rare, are not unheard of. Yet, without concrete evidence, these ideas remained speculative, adding to the ever-growing list of possibilities. At the same time, a more human element of the story began to take shape. Among the recovered items was a series of handwritten notes, painstakingly preserved despite their waterlogged condition. These notes, written by the crew in their final moments, offered a glimpse into their thoughts as the submarine descended into the abyss. They spoke of hope, faith, and messages for loved ones, a testament to their courage and humanity even in the face of impending disaster. But one line, scrawled hastily and barely legible, sent chills through those who read it: "The sea is alive." The phrase, cryptic and haunting, sparked a wave of theories. Some interpreted it as a metaphor, a reflection of the crew's respect for the unpredictable nature of the ocean. Others took it more literally, suggesting the crew might have encountered something extraordinary, something no one was prepared to face. Was it an acknowledgement of the sea's immense power, or was there something lurking in the depths that defied explanation? As the search effort stretched on, tensions began to rise among the international teams involved. Each nation brought its own equipment, expertise, and priorities, but the lack of definitive answers began to strain cooperation. Rumors surfaced about classified information being withheld, further fueling suspicions of a cover-up. Could there have been something on board the Nangala that made its disappearance more than a simple accident? Or was this friction merely the result of frustration and grief? Meanwhile, the families of the crew continued to grapple with their loss, their grief compounded by the lack of closure. For some, the official explanations offered little comfort. A father of one of the crew members shared his frustration, saying, "It's not just about knowing how they died, it's about understanding why it happened. There has to be a reason, something that makes sense." His words echoed the sentiments of many, a plea for answers in a situation that seemed determined to withhold them. The Indonesian Navy, under immense pressure to deliver results, turned its focus to the submarine's last recorded location. Using advanced sonar imaging, they began mapping the seabed with unprecedented precision. What they found only deepened the mystery. The area was a chaotic landscape of jagged rocks and narrow trenches, a maze of underwater features that made navigation treacherous even for modern vessels. Among the mapped regions was a previously uncharted canyon, its depths exceeding the capabilities of most exploration equipment. Could this abyss hold the key to the Nangala's fate, or was it yet another dead end in an investigation full of them? As the teams prepared for a final push to explore the area, tension hung heavy in the air. Each new discovery seemed to bring more questions than answers, and the stakes had never felt higher. The world was watching, waiting for clarity in a story that had captivated and confounded in equal measure. But as the operation neared its most critical stage, an unsettling realization began to dawn. What if the truth, when it finally surfaced, was more terrifying than anyone could have imagined? As the search team prepared to venture into the uncharted canyon, there was an air of both determination and dread. The sonar scans had revealed a startling detail, a faint metallic signature at the canyon's edge, buried beneath layers of sediment. It was too weak to confirm as the wreckage of the Nangala, but it was enough to reignite hope. With every piece of equipment calibrated and the remotely operated vehicle, ROV, ready to descend, the mission was poised to uncover answers that had eluded investigators for months. Yet, even as preparations advanced, whispers of unease rippled through the crew. Something about this area didn't feel right. The descent into the canyon began without incident. The ROV's cameras streamed grainy footage of the seabed, its robotic arm ready to collect samples or retrieve debris. But as it descended deeper, the atmosphere among the search team shifted. The canyon walls grew narrower, their jagged edges casting eerie shadows in the ROV's lights. Then, the feed flickered. At first, it seemed like a technical glitch, common enough in such harsh environments. But the flickering persisted, growing more erratic, until the screen abruptly went black. For a moment, the control room was silent, save for the hum of machines and the whispered prayers of anxious crew members. When the feed returned, what it showed was almost too strange to believe. The ROV's cameras captured what appeared to be a vast field of debris, scattered chaotically across the seabed. But this wasn't the wreckage of a single vessel. Pieces of metal, machinery, and what looked like sections of hull plating were interspersed with fragments from ships far older than the Nangala. Some of the objects bore markings from the Second World War, while others were too corroded to identify. It was as if this canyon had become an underwater graveyard, a place where the sea collected its lost. The discovery raised immediate questions. How could so many wrecks end up in the same location? The canyon wasn't a known shipping route, and the presence of vessels spanning decades didn't align with any documented naval activity. Theories began to swirl, ranging from undersea currents dragging debris into the canyon to more sinister suggestions of deliberate scuttling. But the most unnerving possibility came from an old maritime legend, a tale whispered among sailors about dead zones in the ocean where compasses fail, technology falters, and ships simply vanish. As the ROV continued its exploration, it approached the metallic signature that had drawn the team to the canyon. The cameras revealed a twisted mass of steel, its edges warped and jagged. It was unmistakably part of the Nangala. But before the team could celebrate the breakthrough, the ROV sensors detected something unusual, a series of faint, rhythmic pulses emanating from deeper within the wreckage. The pulses were too regular to be natural, yet their source was unclear. They didn't match any known distress signal or beacon frequency. It was as if the wreck itself was alive, sending out a message no one could interpret. The discovery sent shockwaves through the control room. Was this some kind of malfunctioning equipment, trapped in the wreckage and still operational? Or could it be something more deliberate? The pulses raised the stakes in a way no one had anticipated. If the Nangala was emitting signals, it implied the possibility, however remote, that something on board had survived. But how could that be? Months had passed since the submarine's disappearance, and the crushing depths of the canyon left no room for life. Yet, the pulses continued, steady and unyielding, defying explanation. As the team debated their next move, tensions began to rise. Some argued for an immediate retrieval operation, desperate to uncover the source of the signals. Others cautioned against rushing in, pointing out the dangers of operating in such an unstable environment. The canyon's narrow walls and unpredictable currents made it a perilous place to maneuver, and any misstep could jeopardize the entire mission. Still, the lure of answers proved too strong to resist. The ROV was instructed to press on, its lights cutting through the darkness as it navigated closer to the wreckage. What it found next deepened the mystery. Nestled among the debris was a structure that didn't belong, a dome-like object, partially buried in sediment and covered in strange markings. The object didn't match any part of the Nangala or any known naval equipment. Its surface was smooth, almost polished, and it appeared to pulse faintly in sync with the signals the team had detected. The sight of it sent a chill through the control room. Whatever this object was, it wasn't part of the submarine. It was something else entirely. Speculation erupted. Could this be an unexplored geological feature, an artifact from an ancient civilization, or something more advanced? The markings on its surface didn't resemble any known language or symbols, adding another layer of complexity to the discovery. Some of the team members, unable to shake the uncanny feeling the object evoked, suggested halting the mission and reporting the find to higher authorities. But the lead investigator, driven by an almost obsessive need for answers, insisted on continuing. The object, he argued, could hold the key to understanding what had happened to the Nangala. As the ROV prepared to examine the object more closely, the pulses began to change. What had been a steady rhythm grew erratic, the intervals between each pulse shortening. Then, without warning, the canyon seemed to come alive. The currents shifted violently, swirling in patterns that defied natural explanation. The lights on the ROV flickered again, and the cameras captured something moving, shadows darting across the seabed, too fast and too fluid to identify. Panic rippled through the control room as the team scrambled to maintain control of the ROV. In those tense moments, one thing became clear. Whatever was down there, it didn't want to be disturbed. The realization hit like a wave, leaving the team frozen with a mix of fear and awe. The canyon wasn't just a resting place for the lost. It was something far more dangerous, a place where the ocean's mysteries converged, and where even the bravest could only scratch the surface of the truth. As the signals grew louder, echoing through the control room like a heartbeat, the team faced an impossible choice: push forward into the unknown or retreat while they still could. The tension was palpable, the stakes higher than ever. Yet, amidst the chaos, one question loomed larger than all the others. What had the Nangala encountered in its final moments, and was the team now on the brink of discovering it, or repeating it? The answers were close, tantalizingly within reach. But at what cost? The control room was in chaos as the ROV's cameras flickered back to life, revealing an image that sent shivers through everyone watching. The strange dome-like structure was no longer pulsing faintly. It now emitted a steady, ominous glow that bathed the surrounding wreckage in an eerie light. The rhythmic pulses had transformed into a constant hum, resonating through the equipment and vibrating in the air. Every instinct told the team to pull back, but the lead investigator, eyes locked on the screen, ordered the ROV to continue its approach. As the robotic arm extended toward the dome, something unexpected happened. The light grew brighter, enveloping the screen in a blinding flash. For a moment, everything went silent: the hum, the chatter in the control room, even the background noise of the equipment. When the feed returned, what the cameras captured defied all logic. The debris field was gone, replaced by an expanse of smooth, unbroken seafloor. The dome, once partially buried, now stood fully exposed, its markings glowing faintly as if activated by the ROV's presence. The tension in the room was electric. "What are we looking at?" someone whispered, breaking the stunned silence. The lead investigator, his face pale but resolute, ordered the ROV to scan the dome for any openings or features. As the robotic arm moved closer, the markings on the surface began to shift, rearranging themselves into patterns that resembled symbols or letters. It was as if the structure was alive, responding to the ROV's presence. Suddenly, the hum returned, louder and more intense than before. The symbols on the dome glowed brighter, and the surrounding water seemed to shimmer unnaturally. Then, without warning, the dome released a burst of energy that sent the ROV spiraling backward. The feed cut out again, and this time, it didn't return. Panic spread through the control room as technicians scrambled to regain control of the equipment. The lead investigator, gripping the edge of the console, stared at the blank screen, his mind racing. What had they just uncovered? And more importantly, had they triggered something they couldn't stop? Before the team could regroup, a new development seized their attention. The sonar equipment began picking up movement, massive, deliberate movement, originating from the canyon. The readings didn't match any known marine life or natural phenomenon. It was as if something enormous was rising from the depths, its path steady and unrelenting. The realization hit the team like a tidal wave. Whatever they had disturbed, it was no longer confined to the ocean floor. The control room erupted into action. Emergency protocols were activated, and the crew prepared for an immediate evacuation. Yet, amidst the chaos, the lead investigator hesitated. He knew they were on the brink of uncovering the truth, a truth that had eluded them for so long. Against the protests of his team, he stayed behind, determined to document what was happening. The final moments were a blur of chaos and fear. The sonar readings grew more erratic, the movement accelerating toward the surface. Then, in a moment that would haunt those who witnessed it, the sea itself seemed to erupt. A massive column of water shot into the air, accompanied by a deafening roar. For a split second, something breached the surface, an enormous, shadowy shape that defied description. And then, just as quickly as it appeared, it vanished, leaving the sea calm once more. The surviving crew, now miles away, watched in stunned silence as the ocean returned to its tranquil state. The lead investigator was gone, along with the control room and all the equipment. The incident was swiftly classified, with officials offering vague explanations about natural phenomena and deep-sea pressure changes. But those who were there knew the truth was far more complex, and far more terrifying. In the weeks that followed, strange reports began to emerge from the region. Fishermen spoke of unusual lights beneath the waves and mysterious sounds that echoed through their boats at night. The area around the canyon was declared off-limits, but the whispers persisted. Some claimed the Nangala had stumbled upon something ancient and powerful, something that was never meant to be found. Others believed it was a warning, a reminder of how little humanity truly understands about the depths of the ocean. And as for the lead investigator, his final moments remained a mystery. But one detail, captured in the last transmission from the control room, offered a chilling hint. Just before the feed cut out for the last time, a faint voice could be heard, distorted but unmistakable: "The sea is alive." In the days that followed the strange and devastating events near the canyon, the search team disbanded, their mission cut short by forces they couldn't explain. Those who had witnessed the unfolding chaos returned to shore with haunted eyes, burdened by memories they could neither share nor forget. Official statements were drafted, carefully worded to dispel rumors and assure the public that the Nangala tragedy was nothing more than a catastrophic accident, a mechanical failure deep in the unforgiving ocean. But the crew knew better, and the weight of that knowledge stayed with them, unspoken but ever present. The lead investigator's disappearance left a gaping void. He had been the heart of the mission, relentless in his pursuit of answers, even when the risks grew too great. The surviving team members struggled with conflicting emotions: grief for their lost leader and guilt for having abandoned him when the situation became too dangerous. Yet, as they replayed the events in their minds, they realized he wouldn't have wanted it any other way. His choice to stay behind wasn't just a decision, it was his final act of defiance, a refusal to let fear obscure the truth. In the weeks that followed, rumors about the mission spread like wildfire. While officials maintained their narrative of a tragic accident, whispers of what really happened reached the ears of journalists, conspiracy theorists, and curious onlookers. Stories of strange lights, massive underwater structures, and a shadowy figure rising from the depths captured the public's imagination. Some dismissed the tales as exaggerated fabrications, while others clung to them as proof of humanity's limited understanding of the ocean. Among the crew, a few began to piece together what they had seen. The dome-like structure wasn't just an anomaly, it was something far older and more significant than they could comprehend. Its markings and the pulsing signals it emitted hinted at an intelligence far beyond human understanding. But was it a warning? A message? Or something more sinister? The answers seemed forever out of reach, buried in the depths alongside the Nangala and its mysterious discovery. Despite the trauma of the mission, some team members couldn't let go of their questions. One of the engineers, a woman who had spent countless hours analyzing the sonar data, quietly began her own investigation. She pored over every scrap of information, trying to decipher the strange patterns and signals captured before the ROV was lost. The deeper she delved, the more she became convinced that the pulses were not random, they were deliberate, almost like a form of communication. But to whom? And for what purpose? Her search led her to a retired oceanographer, a man who had spent decades studying unexplainable phenomena in the deep sea. When she showed him the patterns, his face went pale. He explained that similar signals had been recorded before, in isolated incidents scattered across the globe. Each time, they were dismissed as equipment malfunctions or environmental noise. But the oceanographer believed otherwise. He spoke of ancient legends shared by maritime cultures, stories of sentient seas, living waters that could think and act. To him, the signals weren't just communication, they were evidence of something alive beneath the waves. While the engineer found some solace in these conversations, the rest of the crew tried to move on with their lives. But strange occurrences began to follow them. Some reported vivid dreams of the canyon, of being pulled into its depths by unseen forces. Others spoke of an overwhelming sense of being watched whenever they were near the ocean. One by one, they grew reluctant to talk about the mission, as if speaking of it might awaken whatever they had disturbed. The lead investigator's family was left with more questions than answers. Despite exhaustive searches, no trace of him or the control room equipment was ever found. His wife, refusing to accept the official narrative, launched her own investigation. She combed through his notes, emails, and personal recordings, hoping to find a clue that might explain his disappearance. Among his belongings, she discovered a notebook filled with sketches of the dome and its markings, accompanied by cryptic notes: "Not natural. Not ours. Warning." Her discovery reignited public interest in the case, but it also drew the attention of authorities. Government officials visited her, urging her to stop her investigation for her own safety. They spoke in veiled terms about national security and classified information, but their warnings only strengthened her resolve. She knew her husband had uncovered something monumental, something the world deserved to know. As the months turned into years, the canyon and its secrets faded from public memory, overshadowed by other news and tragedies. The area was declared a restricted zone, off-limits to civilian vessels and research missions. Yet, for those who had been there, the memory of what they saw never faded. The survivors carried the weight of that day in silence, knowing the truth was too strange, too terrifying to share. In the quiet moments of their lives, they would sometimes wonder what truly happened to the Nangala. Did it stumble upon something ancient and powerful, something that chose to hide itself from humanity's prying eyes? Or was it simply a victim of the ocean's unforgiving nature, its mysteries forever beyond our grasp? They would never know for sure. But one thing was certain: the sea held secrets that no human could ever fully understand. Years later, a fisherman near the restricted zone reported seeing something unusual. As he cast his net into the water, he noticed faint lights glowing beneath the surface, moving in patterns too deliberate to be random. He quickly hauled in his catch and left the area, his heart pounding in his chest. When he shared his story with others, they dismissed it as the ramblings of an old man. But those who had been part of the Nangala mission couldn't ignore the eerie familiarity of his account. The ocean, vast and unknowable, kept its secrets well. And for those who dared to venture into its depths, it offered no guarantees, only the promise that some mysteries are better left undisturbed. As the waves rolled on, indifferent to the lives they touched, one thing became clear: the truth about the missing Indonesian submarine would remain as elusive as the sea itself, a haunting reminder of how little we truly know about the world beneath the surface.